Samlol Tashtile. This is meant for the English-speaking Tibetans who tend to understand my messages more clearly if I speak in English, and there has been quite a number of requests. Today, I'll speak on what I have already announced on 2nd September, Tibetan Democracy Day, the day which I considered as an auspicious day to announce my candidature for 2021 Sikyong. Now, in that statement, there are several issues that I raised. One is why I'm standing for the Sikyong election. That is the first and foremost question that comes to everybody's mind as to why Pemba Tsering is standing for Sikyong. Now, I have 6 reasons why I'm standing for Sikyong. Number one, in the last few months, my biggest regret is that in my prime, I have not been able to serve my community. Now, having to overcome challenges in day-to-day life, and more particularly in public life, is inevitable. I have not only faced those challenges successfully throughout my life, and in more recent times, but also learned to surmount them fair and square. Despite these uncalled for irritants, I remain steadfast. That is my first reason. I remain steadfast in my oath-bound commitment to devote my whole life to rendering service for the common good of Tibet and the Tibetan people. So my commitment, whatever difficulties, whatever challenges that I had to go through in my life, I've faced it, I've overcome it, and I remain true to my commitment to serve the Tibetans and the Tibetan people this whole life. Now, to serve the Tibetan people, number 2, ranks and positions, of course, are not necessarily important, but then it does make a difference in terms of the extent to which one can render such services and to the range and depth of the effectiveness of those services. So that is the second reason why I'm joining the Sikyong election. The third reason is the position of Sikyong is one that enables the person occupying it to bring out his or her maximum potential to the task of rendering political and administrative services for the people of Tibet. All the while keeping uppermost in your mind the sanctity and the sanctity of the noble and reasonable advisories of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or the thoughts of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Number 4, in keeping with the wide range of experiences that I've gone through in the last more than 30 years in public life, and the vigor of my physical and mental health, I feel this is the right time and age for me to bring out the best of my potentials to the service of the Tibet, to the service of Tibet and the Tibetan people. This is the fourth reason. The fifth reason is, if I do not stand for election this time, my impudence would hurt the sentiment of many people who have expressed their trust in my leadership and belief in my personal integrity, capability, and sincerity in meeting the challenges ahead. And last reason is I remain confident more than ever before that the policies and programs that I envision in political, administrative, and social economic field will definitely bear immediate and long-term positive results for the cause of Tibet and the well-being of Tibetans in and outside Tibet. Now, having said all this, the reasons why I'm standing for the position of Sikyong in 2021, I think it's particularly important for the younger generations of Tibet who are not too familiar with Tibetan politics so far. They know a little bit of my background. Except for a few years after graduating from college to attend to the needs of my large family, we are 9 brothers and sisters. In my own humble way, from a simple farmer's son, I became the Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in Exile. Served the community all my life, fulfilling the wishes of my parents and the responsibility to my people. Through all these years, I feel proud and privileged to have served under and being guided by the most reasonable and benevolent leadership of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. 21 years within the Central Tibetan administration, I imbibed both traditional values and modern education and served with complete sincerity and dedication, forthright in my views and deed for the common good, forsaking personal gains. Now, during those years of service, within the Tibetan community, since I myself come from a simple farmer's family background in Balakupi, and having visited most of the settlements in India, Nepal, and Bhutan, India and Nepal, and around the world, I have not visited Bhutan so far. If not for the pandemic, or if not for the COVID-19, I would have visited Bhutan and the nomadic areas in Ladakh and Tuting and some other areas that I have not visited so far. Except for these few places, I have visited most of the Tibetan communities worldwide. I have insightful knowledge of the social, financial, demographic structure of the Tibetans in exile. Thereby, I am quite well placed to develop policies and programs suited to the needs of each of these communities. And within the same Tibetan community, I've spent considerable amount of time understanding the history of Tibet and mindset of Tibetans from different parts of Tibet. That is very, very important for us to understand Tibetan politics. So that gives me an analytical understanding of the causes of internal societal and political issues, and seek appropriate approaches to alleviate them, to mitigate them, pool in collective effort to resolve them that addresses concerns of different sections of our community. See, before taking over the responsibility of the Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in Exile, I have organized numerous workshops to strengthen democracy at the grassroots, particularly in training the elected local assembly representatives. So my knowledge of the Charter and the rules and regulations that govern the Tibetans in exile will help in deeper entrenchment of democratic polity in exile at both the local and the central level. When I was serving as the director of Tibetan Parliamentary and Policy Research Center for 7.5 years in Delhi from 2001 to 2008, I have worked with representatives of all the I have organized many youth leadership workshops from 2003 onwards till the end of my tenure in that office, and have been working very closely with and empowering the younger generation of Tibetans. So this, even during my speakership, I've spent enough time with younger generation of Tibetans. And also when I was representative of His Holiness in Washington, D.C., I tried as much as possible to reach out to the younger generation. Now, this will remain one of the main focus of our work, to prepare and to empower the younger generation of Tibetans worldwide. Later, we will discuss more about this. And number E is then I became speaker in December 2008, and for 7.5 years I served as the Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile. During those times, you very well understand that I have to work with representatives of all the 3 provinces and religious traditions in the Standing Committee. And during those 7.5 years, we worked diligently. We spent our time working, not on divisive politics. Despite what some troublemakers, there are always troublemakers within the community. So, despite what some troublemakers try to insinuate, my work record is testimony to the fact that I have the capability to work with and pool all our energies together for the greater good of Tibet. We have to leave all our small differences behind. F, we as people of Tibet owe our present existence solely because of the benevolence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or the leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Therefore, it is the duty of every Tibetan, and more particularly the leadership of Central Tibetan Administration, to appropriately respond to any malicious statement from within or without the Tibetan community, and I shall never ever waver from this responsibility, whoever may be the offender. Whoever may be the offender, I'll stand up and make sure that all these unfounded malicious statements are corrected. Number 2, international community, my experience in the international community. So over and above my experience working in Delhi for close to a decade with Indian political leaders, my interactions and associations with foreign offices around the world, wherever I visited, enables me to develop international relations programs to effectively disseminate reality of the situation inside Tibet, to seek political support and good understanding of, I also have a good understanding of the budgetary systems of these countries to enable fundraising to meet the needs and the requirement of the Central Tibetan Administration. Number B, I also had the opportunity to organize 3 World Parliamentarians Convention on Tibet, which is one of the 2 big platforms that support the Tibet issue. As a group of parliamentarians coming from all over the world, we meet. The first 4 were held in 94, 95, 97. Then we organized the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th in Scotland, in Rome in 2009, and 2012 in Ottawa. And I've also participated in the other big platform, that is the International Tibet Support Groups Conference. So with both these experiences, and in addition, I have led parliamentary delegations to many countries. As speaker, individually, I have visited many countries around the world. And these experiences will provide me with the means to develop ways to strengthen parliamentary groups and Tibet support groups around the world. Now, this is regarding my exposure to the international community. On issues relating to what is happening inside Tibet, although I did not have the good fortune to visit Tibet or having been born in Tibet, throughout my political career, I have read reports, I have listened to people, I have closely watched the consequences of PRC's policies and programs in Tibet. And this will help us in bringing the right issues to be raised internationally, and more particularly with China. Resolving the issue of Tibet remains the topmost priority of Central Tibetan Administration, and the second being the well-being of Tibetans in exile. About Tibet again, I have a very clear understanding of how the middle way approach has evolved, and also have a good understanding of different autonomous arrangements around the world. We have studied so many different numbers of autonomous arrangements around the world, and we have held conferences with experts, politicians, and academics from these countries. And my commitment to Umelam, that is the middle way approach, that was proposed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The public openly supported that, and the parliament unanimously passed that in 1997, and I will never waver from that position. Until the Tibetan people remain steadfast in this approach, I shall relentlessly work towards seeking a logical conclusion through this approach. Now, regarding China, I read and study China and try to understand the thinking of the Communist Chinese leadership as much as possible, with whatever material that I can lay my hands on, despite the opaqueness of the Chinese system. This will help me in maintaining a realistic approach with a clear understanding of China's dubious and devious means. I still continue to read about China every single day, and then we also have to look at the global situation. I read and watch every development and changing dynamics around the world every single day. Therefore, I'm quite conversant with global political and financial situation, regional, geostrategic, and military realignments that could have a bearing on Tibet. This will allow us to avail of any or all opportunities for pushing the Tibet agenda on any given platform at any given time. So these, without going into details of from what age to what age, I did what, these are a general picture of what I went through in my 21 years of service for the Central Tibetan Administration. And then in that statement, I also covered what I was doing in the last 3 years. I will not go into detail of all this. Most of you know that I had to spend a lot of time on an issue that was unwarranted, that was not necessary. But it happened, and I did that for the benefit of Tibetan democracy, and also to save my own reputation within the public as to what I've been doing. So on that, I had to spend a lot of time. Then in between, I wanted to do a project on the Tibetan resettlement in North America, how it came about. Now the project is becoming longer and larger, so it's taking a little more time than what I had thought. Then I also spent a lot of time listening to His Holiness Dalai Lama. I also spent a lot of time reading again and reaffirming the historical perspective of Tibet in all the 3 regions. So except for one time when Tugu Oyen Topke tried to defame His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I had to come out openly. Except for that one occasion, for the last more than 9 months, I did not speak to the Tibetan public, and many of my friends have been trying to reach me. I stayed away from all that. I stayed away from social media, doing my own bit for my family, which I've not been able to do for the last 30 years. So I spent the last 3 years not wasting, but properly using, and every time thinking about what is or what are the reasons or what are the causes for these kind of problems, and how do we meet these challenges. And as we say, just as we have day, we have night, and similarly you have problems and you have solutions to everything. So that is what I've been thinking about. So today in this first segment, I told you about the 6 reasons why I'm standing for Sikyong election this time, and my experiences within the Tibetan community, globally, uh, about Tibet and about China. So with these considerations in mind, I believe that I am at the right age with the right experience to take the leadership of the Tibetan people. I stop here with this statement. The second segment, I will continue with my views on the current election, or my opinion on the current election, or what my position would be. Thank you so much. Now, the second segment of my statement on 2nd September, I defined how my administration, if the public, should the public decide to make me the Sikyong, then what I will do, how I will do. That is what is more important than my personality for you to select your own candidate and vote for him or her. Now, in the 2016 election, I brought out a brochure. Maybe I was the only one who brought out a brochure, written brochure. And I have made the following points as to how I will go about doing my job. 1, all my policies and programs will be very, very clear and consistent. So for any administration to function well, all their policies has to be very, very clear and consistent. Number 2, all our goals will be based on ground reality. I do not forever resort to rhetorics. I always think about what is achievable and what is the ground reality, based on which what we need to achieve. Number 3, whatever we do, it will be fair and impartial in its undertaking. Despite what people say, they can judge for themselves. We will be fair, irrespective of who is supporting what, or who belongs to which province or religious tradition, or young and old. That doesn't matter. Once you are entrusted with the responsibility, it's your responsibility to be fair and just, which means equitable. Number 4, implementation of all these programs and plans will have to be result oriented. So everything, all energies will be geared, all the resources that we use will be geared towards getting the right kind of results. So these were the 4 points that I talked about. But this time, in addition to what I've already said in 2016, I have raised 3 basic principles as my campaign slogan. 1, the principle. The principle of my approach, the basic ideology, the basic thinking that goes into everything I do would be equitable. When we say equitable, we are talking about being fair, being just, being equal, being unbiased. So all those values come into the term equitable, and that is my basic principle. And the objective is to move forward. Moving forward is my main objective. We have our history behind us, we have our experience behind us. We have to learn from this history, we have to learn from these experiences, but there is no time to step back. We have no space to step back, we have no time to step back. The only way is to move forward. And the means, how do we achieve that? The means is co-effort. Co-effort meaning collective effort or cooperative effort. So we have to pool in resources, whether it's human, financial, or knowledge. So all these resources within and without the Tibetan community has to be pooled in to make all our projects successful. Because for every single policy and program, there will be a role that the administration has to play, the bureaucracy has to play, the public has to play, the communities has to play, every single individual has to play their role. So that will be my means. So the principle is equitable, objective is moving forward, and means is co-effort. So I'll be focusing on these three issues whenever I talk about any particular subject that I intend to raise in the coming weeks. Now, from that time onwards, starting from 17th October, I started speaking about the most important topics that concerns us. And if you give me the responsibility of the Sikong, then how I intend to fulfill all this. That is more important for you to understand that the personality of candidates. Now, how do I view this election, 2016? Now, as a candidate, personally, I shall strive to ensure that the electoral process of the Tibetans in exile this time becomes one that could held up as an exemplar for the future generation of Tibetans to come. So that way we have to mitigate or reduce all kinds of rumors within the Tibetan community. We cannot be acrimonious, pointing fingers at others. The best way to conduct an election is to point out or to bring out the best qualities of your candidate. You are not supposed to demean other candidates. That's not the proper way to do it. That causes the reason why there is divisiveness within the Tibetan community. So I, as a candidate, commit to making this election as fair and as less acrimonious, as less divisive as possible. And as I mentioned earlier about how I spent my last 3 years, the whole intention was to bring the community together. Number two, in 2008, when someone asked me in San Francisco, if you do stand for election, what would you do? At that time, I said that I will refrain from making any critical remarks about any other candidates. Unless provoked, I shall also not make any statement about the incumbent administration. And I always put this condition because there have been several incidences in the past where I had to respond because of things that were said which were not accurate or which were insinuating something else besides the facts. So this time I commit to the people that I shall not make any critical remarks about other candidates, and I urge in any of the platforms that I might participate in future, even if you ask me questions about other candidates, I shall not respond in any way, and that's my promise. Number three, now since as a candidate I'm doing this, I take this opportunity to appeal to supporters and non-supporters alike, any Tibetan, every Tibetan, not to resort or not to engage in acrimonious exchanges or spreading false information. The only right thing to do is to talk about the good qualities of your candidate and see how you can convince the people to vote for your candidate. That's the only way to go forward. And then I have personally not contacted any person of influence in Dharamsala or around, or I have not called any single individual. My approach this time, particularly because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we are going through, it doesn't make sense for us or any of the candidates, particularly from my side, by being a responsible uh, candidate, uh, there is no option but to speak to the public directly. And that is what I have been doing in Tibetan so far, and this is what I'm doing right now, speaking with you in English, um, without having to visit. It's not because I don't want to visit. I've made it very clear that I can visit anytime. I can put in all the energy. I'm in the right frame of my physical and mental setup right now. So I'm willing to come anytime, but not during the COVID, because I cannot put people's life at risk. Therefore, I will be speaking personally to the public, directly on all issues, and eventually we will have more discussion sessions based on what I've said. So I have not, and I will not be contacting any person of influence or any single individual for support. Now I leave it to the people to decide to whom you need to support. Then my way of communication, I now live in Balakopi, and the only way is to reach out to the public directly, because I consider live streaming as very important to reach out directly to the people in that timeline. And in English, now we are recording, and eventually we will come out openly on a different time, live stream, whenever that is possible. But I want to make clear that we need to inform people. I take this opportunity also to to a certain extent, like a workshop for the younger generation of Tibetans, or those Tibetans who have not been politically active or aware of the Central Tibetan administration and its functionings. So I'll be speaking generally also about institutions, how they function, and then how I intend to do it. This will also be educational for the general public. And it's very important for every single Tibetan to understand their candidate, their background, their political thinking, what they have done so far, and what they intend to do if once you elect him or her as your Sikyong. That is very important. Based on that, one must take a decision as to who you should or you want to support. So that means people having informed decision. I consider that very important. But on the other hand, I have already told my friends in the media, people I know in the media, that I will not take part in one-on-one debates between candidates. Because through the experiences that I went through last time, that does not help. 2 minutes of time to talk about a bigger issue is not enough to talk about a serious issue. Then one person responding in 1 minute and another person responding in another half minute. So that does not help make people understand issues. But on the other hand, it creates more divisiveness, because during those debates, people raise issues, then you tend to answer, and then, then that becomes a cause for division within supporters, within different groups. So I said, I have made my decision that I will not take part in one-on-one interviews by the media, and also I shall not take part in conferences or groupings or meetings that are organized by social media, because we are still learning to be responsible individual reporters without understanding the ethics of journalism. Therefore, there may be groups who are already biased in somebody's favor, or there may be groups who are completely unbiased. It's very difficult to make out who is what. Therefore, to have a community that's free of rumor mongering, the responsibility of accountability, answerability, and responsibility of elected representatives or to be elected representatives to the general public should be done through organized media. That is RFA or VOA or VOT or all the other medias that we have. So I will accept if now many people tend to copy American democracy. You see the state where American democracy is right now. Now, if you really want to copy American democracy, one thing that I appreciate is the town hall meetings. So I will participate in town hall meetings organized by Tibetan media, moderated by Tibetan media, and people, ordinary people with good enough knowledge asking questions directly to the candidate. That I will definitely entertain, I'll participate, and one-on-one interviews that I'll accept. But other than that, I have no intention to create more confusion in the process already that exists. No, I'm aware of the fact that some people feel that there are too many candidates in the field, that the votes will get distributed and all that. That is the charm of democracy. That is the ornament of democracy. The more candidates we have, it shows to the world that we have that many number of people who want to work for the cause, who want to sacrifice for the cause. So that itself sends one message. And the other thing is that people have more choices. Then they know who is what within the Tibetan community. The reason why I'm speaking to you in English today is also to promote understanding of candidates. Just like you try to understand me now, I would expect other candidates also to speak about themselves and what they intend to do in future. So only that way can you understand a candidate. The best way is to reach out to people whom the candidates have worked with earlier. Then you get a better understanding of who that person is. Unless you have worked with that person, it's very difficult to understand. Even your own family, it's very difficult to understand, even if you spend your whole life living with them. So that way, people should decide, make informed decision, knowing what their candidates will do. We should rejoice in the fact that this is a part of democracy, that we have so many candidates. Now, in conclusion, as we always say, I offer earnest prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the just cause of Tibet may triumph in all speediness, so that there may be of reunion of the Tibetans inside and outside Tibet. And I really hope and wish, and I do my part to make sure that the process of election this time may proceed smoothly and conclude successfully without any problem. I will end by saying, be informed, make your choice, and celebrate democracy. And more will come every week on different subjects. Thank you.